Hey, everybody. Thank you very much for showing up for this special free workshop on Feng Shui and real estate. You're going to find out that there's been a lot of changes in Feng Shui, and Feng Shui has kept up with them. It's had to keep up with things like electricity, how to actually work with it, and all that kind of thing. So it's really quite sort of new in some ways over the last 20 years. So it's really, really ready for the modern world in a lot of ways. So the agenda for tonight is I'm going to give you a quick introduction to Feng Shui. Going over some of the fundamentals of Feng Shui in real estate. You're going to learn the four Feng Shui tools to make your listings irresistible. Certainly, a very important thing is boosting curb appeal to get more foot traffic and faster sales. And then finally, using Feng Shui as your competitive edge to stand out in the market. One thing that really was very, very positive to me when I started using it in my real estate career. Now, if any of you have ever looked at my profile, you might have seen that I was a mathematics teacher many, many moons ago, public and private in New Jersey and then in the Carolinas for a few years. And this is a Venn diagram. In the three circles, we're going to talk about each one of them right now. And if you notice, the sweet spot is in the middle. They all share the middle. And so I'm labeling that the compound effect of feng shui equal sold listings. Okay. So we're going to start up at the top in the first circle, and that represents working in the interior. Now, most people think of feng shui, they think of only the interior, moving furniture, doing this, doing that. Well, there's so much more to feng shui than that. So much more. And here are some of the things that working on the interior are going to help you with your listings. It's going to create a balance to the rooms. It's going to create harmony to the whole house. It's going to really improve how you go about using color. It'll improve the flow of energy. And we'll be taking care of something called poison arrows. We'll be removing as many as we can of those to create a very welcoming environment. Now, balance and harmony are very, very important. And one of the things that really intrigued me when I got involved with Feng Shui full time over 20 years ago is that I found out that when you really do the job correctly, it really influences the subconscious of a person, of the buyer, you might say, or of course, of any visitor that comes into your house. And 95% of all decisions are happening there. And if you don't believe me, look it up. Whatever your experience is, this template really governs an awful lot of decisions. So 95% of everything happens in the subconscious with respect to decisions. And that is where we've got to make sure we influence it. And feng shui influences it greatly. So the interior, of course, is extremely important. But believe it or not, in feng shui, the outside is really considered even more important. So let's talk a little bit about the landscaping. So we do modules on how to do contrast, such an important aspect. So things stand out. We use contrast in every one of the rooms. We use contrast outside, and it really, really helps with respect to what's going to happen in the third circle. We work a lot on making sure the front door is really well done. If your front doors of your listings are not really popping, you're hurting a great deal of really creating a lot of enthusiasm. And not only that, it's going to influence, again, the third circle. You're going to learn in this training how to soften the exterior to make it more welcoming. There are a lot of homes out there that are really not very welcoming when you pull up to them. And so you want to make them as welcoming and as attractive as possible. And so we show you how to do that. Again, you want to make it welcoming, but you also want to make it what I would consider magnetic attraction. It sort of draws a person's eye. Have you ever driven down in your subdivision or down a road of some sort and saw this amazing landscaping, especially in the front yard? If you have, you couldn't take your eyes away from it. It really, really drew you in. So let's get to the third circle. And again, a lot of that stuff is going to show up here in your photos. Yes, we do an awful lot with respect to the house photos. Nowadays, if you're not doing this correctly, you're really hurting yourself tremendously. You're hurting your client, your home seller, tremendously. So I always tell my students to make sure that they do the feng shui first and get everything done correctly before you ever put the home on the market and before you even take the photos, the house photos. Now, the photos are pivotal of getting an awful lot more traffic. So those MLS photos will start to pop. And as you probably know, nowadays, a lot of buyers actually take a look at the photos of the house that they're looking at, possibly by themselves, and they skip over it fairly quickly if it doesn't really intrigue them, doesn't attract them. So your photos have got to pop on not only the MLS, but places like Realtor.com and Trulia and so forth, but also the flyers out front. I don't know if you use flyers as much as I used to, but they also will really, really help to increase traffic for you. So these are the three areas, you might say, that the training hits. The interior has to be perfect, of course, but the outside is going to do an awful lot of attracting attention and attracting people to come in and make an appointment. And again, that's going to happen a lot with the photos. As a former teacher, I used an awful lot of lists, and a list is an easy way to actually summarize how you go about doing things. And I'm all about doing priorities when I work with somebody. This training, if you decide you want to take it, gives you access to free training or free help, I should say, for the rest of your career. So let's go through this real quickly. I even have coined a name for this, and I put this together about 18 years ago. And the first test that must be passed is the curb appeal. All right, we've already touched a little bit about that. Spent a lot of time on that. You have to talk to your clients seriously about certain things that are really hurting your listing, their listing. Believe it or not, test number two is the walk from the car to the front door. Now, you might consider that part of the curb appeal, but I have that also extra. It's so important that they are gaining an enthusiasm before they get to the entrance. The entrance in Feng Shui has a special name. It's called the house, the mouth of Qi. And that is the number one place where Qi or energy comes into a house and makes it feel different, special. And I bet it one time or another, every one of you have walked into, let's say, a store or an office or certainly a house, and you didn't feel quite right. And that reason is because it has very poor feng shui. It doesn't feel good and comfortable. The next one is crossing over the threshold for the first time into the foyer, and you're taking your first glance around and how you want to handle that. Every one of these is very pivotal that you pass. And if you don't do it right, you're going to start to get checks in the wrong column. The next one is the room of first impression. And again, we spend an awful lot of time on this because we've got to keep building their enthusiasm. The room of first impression should be to the right or to the left and not straight ahead. And again, you'll find out how to do that. But the room of first impression is very, very pivotal to give them an idea of how well kept it is how easy it is to move through. Then the flow through it. Is it simple? Is it easy? Is it secure? You might think that's a funny word to be using in this particular presentation. But Feng Shui takes care of the idea of making a person feel safe when they walk into an environment. And again, many homes don't feel quite safe or secure right away. And therefore, they lose their focus too quickly and maybe even their interest. And these are the last two. These are the rooms that are the most important in any home that you're selling. You must put a tremendous amount of time on those. And again, we put an awful lot of time in those on your training. And I refer to this as the 8 most impressionable moments that any home needs to pass. I'm big about using priorities. You need to take care of these perfectly. And then, if you have the time, of course, you can go through the other ones. I don't want to give you the impression that we don't talk about the pantry. We do. I don't want to give you the impression that the walk-in closet is not even talked about. We do. But you have to understand that those things are somewhat secondary to taking care of the 8 most impressionable moments. So, an introduction to Feng Shui, and maybe a lot of you have done a lot of reading, but it started in primary South China over 3,000 years ago, and some books will say over 4,000 years ago. And I refer to it as an environmental science when I talk to people. It's just a very old environmental science. And its beginning has an awful lot to do with how we now do the furniture placement, how we do a house when we're building it. So, of course, this has now gone into using it in our real estate. And this feng shui is adapted now for our modern homes to create a very balanced and prosperous living environment. Prosperous is a very important word for you to get out of that statement. Feng shui creates success for the people that live there. And it can show when a person is walking in to see a home for the first time. This home feels that way. It is spacious. It is not showing limitation. And again, we want to make sure that we show our listings that way. Now, urban planning has also taken into account, and myself and my partner, Lisa Alban, who is also a feng shui master, we work now on planned neighborhoods and businesses. So feng shui is got so many possible avenues for you to work with. So if you're a commercial real estate agent or realtor, you'll find out that there's an awful lot of ways to use this too. The principles and philosophy of feng shui. Again, a lot of this is about balance and harmony. You want to show that right away. You show it outside, inside, and they'll leave thinking that it feels right. You'll learn how to use yin yang, and this is what you see in that picture. You probably have seen that symbol many, many times. But yin yang is a very important tool that you need to learn how to use. The way we use it in real estate is how you light an environment. I promise you, and I'm sure you know, that the master bedroom is lit differently than the dining room and different than the kitchen and so forth. But sadly, some homes don't light their home very well. And some homes don't take advantage of natural sunlight. We also take care of the flow of qi. And yes, that's how you spell qi in some books. I spell it chi, which is probably the way you have seen it. But qi will flow through the space real well if we handle it correctly. You learn how to attract it, you learn how to control it, you learn how to move it through the house to create a very welcoming environment. And certainly we talk about the natural elements, really very pivotal, and we'll get to that even more so in a moment. So the fundamentals of feng shui in real estate. I knew the minute I got myself fully certified as a Feng Shui professional over 20 years ago with a couple from California that I wanted to use it in my real estate business. I could see the ramifications of how this was going to help myself. So again, chi is very, very important. You have to understand how to get the flow done right. It has a real impact on the well-being of the inhabitants. And again, it's something that sort of comes across when somebody is touring the house, considering possibly buying it. Well done homes with feng shui actually promote prosperity. And there's ways to do that. And it is one of the things that we take care of for all of our listings. We want to promote that you're going to be successful here. You're going to be prosperous. The five elements, one of the most important aspects of any feng shui practitioner. This is a one heck of a tool for you. So you understand the elements, and they're the wood, fire, earth, metal, and water, and you learn how to work with them. They all have very distinct qualities, and how you bring them in is a little different. And you're going to find out if you decide to take the training and really incorporate this in your career, that you're going to find some people would prefer not to do it straightforward. So you learn ways to get around their objections. One of the maybe more complex ways of doing things, but man, it really, really works wonders. So this gives you that harmony and balance in a house, and it shows. So the back left of a house, for example, has to be done a little differently than the front right of the house, and so forth. So you learn how to balance the elements. You want them balanced. You don't want extremes. And of course, we spend a lot of time on that. These five elements are in interior design all over the place right now. My partner Lisa is an interior designer also, and she uses them over and over and over to create a really perfect environment. Maybe you've heard of the Bagua. There's a picture of the Bagua that you might see in a book. And each one of those sections that you see are a quadrant, or it's actually referred to as a gua. And they each represent a particular life situation. And we try to enhance certain ones of them, again, as priorities. So you need to learn how to work with the Bagua map. You identify energy areas and you work on them. One of the first things that I do when I evaluate a home is I actually consider the Bagua. This helps me to get started. To me, the Bagua gives you information right away, right away. So it's a great way to start. And yes, we tell you and show you how to do an evaluation step by step. And we give you sheets, listing sheets that really will show you how to do this. We get a seller list, checklist, and a buyer checklist that just help you. So if you are a buyer agent, this is, again, is very much for you too. And of course, it enhances space energy for you really, really well and creates that harmony that we're looking for. So when you're applying feng shui to a property selection, it's important, again, if you're a buyer agent, choosing the right location. And I know you're thinking, oh, I know all about this. But I promise you have no idea the depth that you go in with feng shui knowledge. And again, if you're a buyer agent, or maybe that's half of what you do, you'd find out that you're going to be far ahead of the other agents who have buyers in their cars. They're not going to look at the same things you are. There are going to be many more things that you're going to be able to articulate to your client. So again, I know the importance of location is upmost on your mind, but we look at it even more so. We look for what's positive influences and what are negative influences. Some of those negative influences can be things like noise or pollution, but we're also looking for things like tranquility, and positivity. Yeah, we're looking for all of those kind of things to make sure that they're really, really happy with you and their choice of a home. And I promise you, once you do that continually, the referrals will keep pouring in. The proximity to nature is a very important aspect for Feng Shui. I can give you a real quick study. We do an awful lot of studies and research that we back up these things and we give them to you. So if you run into somebody who really, I don't know about this, you can actually pull this up and explain it to them. Here's a study that was done in Wisconsin. They were using satellites in Wisconsin, and they found out that if an area had less than 10% tree canopy in that area, that there was a lot more depression, a lot more poor health, less success than the people that were living closer to nature. So it is important for you to make sure that there is trees and landscaping in a yard, but even the closeness to a park, okay, or a walking trail. Those things really, really make them feel so much more positive and healthier. And again, they're going to think of you because they're so much happier than they were thinking they were going to be in this particular setting. And we're looking for thriving neighborhoods that really foster a sense of community. So we go deep into it. We want to make sure that it's a very positive energy flow. Again, you get a buyer checklist, takes you right through it. And before you know it, you won't even be using the checklist because you got this all pretty much memorized. And again, you're going to come off as different, unique, special. The orientation of the land and the property is important, but so it is for the house, of course. So we do look at floor plans. You can look at floor plans and tell them, this is not going to be quite what you're looking for. This might be a problem. This is going to work well for you. I don't know about this. Okay. So we look at floor plans, especially when we're working with somebody that is maybe working with a mass builder, home builder. You can look at a floor plan and be able to help them more than the next real estate agent. You're going to be looking at, is there a lot of natural light? This is the number one way you want to show a home, natural light. I promise you that people really, really eat this up and they come across as being more positive in that certain situation. And even the airflow. So you're going to be able to help them in an awful lot of ways if you're a buyer agent. So again, I know some of you are probably that way. Some of you are involved with commercial, but all of these things can also have an impact on an office environment. So landscaping, of course, I've already told you how important it is. The number one thing on the 8 most impressionable moments. So it's really important we get this right. And we go through it and even talk about plants. We talk about location of where you put this and put that. So landscaping really can enhance the energy in an environment. And again, it comes across in a feeling that people notice. So we're going to talk about tree placement. We're going to talk about water features. And you'll find out that you're going to have a listing that's going to come across better. You can see that if you have this knowledge, you're going to come across to something a lot different than the next guy. And certainly, the appeal of the landscaping is really important. And it not only improves the energy, but it improves the appeal of the property. So remember, curb appeal was number one of the 8 most impressionable moments when selling. And again, we spent a lot of time on that. So let's mention several items before we continue here. You're going to learn how to frame the front door perfectly. And I know a lot of you probably think you are doing a really good job there, or you're letting your client do it and say, oh, yeah, that looks just fine. Well, it's so important that you frame the front door correctly with the correct color and the correct plants and even how close they are together. We talk about proportion. So framing it draws the energy in. We're trying to attract the energy into the house to make it feel good. Okay. But it also helps very, very much with respect to the photos that we talked about. You'll learn how to soften a house using landscaping. There are so many homes out there that are coming off as unwelcoming. You'll learn how to soften them. And don't forget, you're going to be doing things like adding excitement just from walking up to the entrance. And you're going to probably get tired of this word if you decide to take the training. I use the word contrast over and over and over. If you don't use contrast inside and outside, things don't pop, things don't stand out. And certain colors are better with certain other colors. So the shape of the garden, the outside, again, is also going to be attracting to people. So the best shapes are circular and curved beds. Okay. If your client, if your home seller doesn't have their beds in a curvy kind of way, the energy doesn't move as well. And secondly, it's been proven it's not as interesting to the visitor. So there's a lot of multiple reasons why you do these things. You take away things like this. We talk about plants that are too close to a house. They do an awful lot of things like hurting the flow of the chi, blocking the natural light. Now, if you look at both these homes, they have trees or bushes that are too close, that are blocking natural light. I want you to consider how important that really is because, again, the natural light will show the interior so much better. We talk a lot about this idea, but it, of course, gives the wrong message to a buyer, too. I've had people mention, especially that house on the top right, as looking like a fortress. That was a multi-million dollar home in Charlotte. And we use the bagua in a lot of ways. It's not just laid over the house, it's laid over the front yard. So the knowledge area is right there, the career area in the front yard's in the middle, and the helpful people area is to the right. That is the front yard. And so we take you through each one of those quads or quadrants and show you how to landscape it. So again, we're looking for curvy beds. We're looking for contrast. That will really help not only street traffic, people driving by, but it'll help you so much on your photos if you do this right. Now, this house right here has done things perfectly. And there's a reason why on the right-hand side, there's white and yellow flowers there. There's a reason why we used in those planters a particular color and so forth. So, believe it or not, doing feng shui actually enhances the property's value. And when the market gets a little difficult, which I think 2025 could become that way, you'll find out that feng shui actually enhances value. So you really want to optimize the entrance to the front door. Again, this is called the mouth of chi. This is the number one place for feng shui energy chi to come in, the number one place. And if you don't get this right, you're really, really hurting yourself. You want to make sure it's very clean and inviting in so many ways. And again, it's going to enhance property appeal and value. So we need to harmonize the interior spaces, of course, not just the outside. So we work on that a great deal with befores and afters. We talk a lot about clutter. And I know you're thinking about possibly your master walk-in closet, for example, or the pantry. Well, you've never seen so much clutter in our training. We talk about it all the time, and it shows up on walls, it shows up on the floors, it shows up in a lot of ways. And the darn thing about clutter is it actually gives you the bad kind of chi. There is bad and there is helpful or good. And of course, we want to get only the good chi coming into the house under control and to all parts of the house. And furniture placement is going to help that with that too. We talk a lot about where it's more secure, how it shows that, and you'll find out that it's very, very helpful to show this to people. And again, make inviting common areas, which encourage social interaction. The wrong color scheme will actually hurt social interaction. The right color scheme will allow that, but it also, if you're doing it right, will help with a bedroom, for example, so that everybody gets a good night's sleep. Feng Shui is a lot about health. You're going to keep your clients healthier and happier. So color schemes are important. The impact of color is one of the first things that anybody notices when they walk into a home. We do a lot about color. Even material creates a particular feeling to a person. So the energy, it influences the energy of the space and really fosters a welcoming and productive atmosphere. So feng shui as your competitive edge to stand out in the market. This might be as important as anything. I hate to say this, but most real estate agents all look the same to the public. They all think you all do the same thing. You don't really have much difference. All right, maybe one of you might work in a larger office. Maybe it's a franchise that is across the country. Okay, maybe the owner or the broker in charge has lived there all their lives, those kind of things. But a competitive edge, feng shui gives it to you. In Florida, for example, international sales are real important, but international sales are important all over the country. We talk a lot about the international investor in the training too, and where they end up. Believe it or not, certain cultures, certain ethnic groups actually sort of go to particular areas of the country. So folks from Mexico go to particular places. People from Slovenia go to particular parts of the country. People from UK buy property in particular parts of the country. We go over all of that and we show you how to actually use that to your benefit. So whether we're talking Australia, United States, UK, there is an awful lot of interest out there. And I promise you, every year, the United States by itself sells more real estate to foreign buyers than the next 20 countries. And that's the truth every year because of the stability of the dollar, the safety idea, and believe it or not, even the price is a little bit lower. My listing appointments when I was in real estate, I wanted to show that I was different. So I would tell them things like this. If you're using feng shui to sell your home, it's going to save you time on the market. It's going to save you money. It's going to save them stress. That's a biggie. It saves a real estate agent stress because they have a much better shot of selling the home faster and therefore not having an upset home seller. And it helps avoid really useless effort. Nobody likes to make beds for week after week after week. So you're going to come off as a hero. I want you to do this. Forget the idea about curb appeal for a second, because really, in a lot of cases right now, it's really web appeal. Everybody uses Realtor.com or Trulia or whatever. Okay. And they actually, in a lot of cases, already have a pretty good idea of what homes they're going to want to look at. And they're going to tell you, hey, look, I want to look at this home. Now, you might have a different opinion of that particular area and you want to add that to them. But they're using the web like crazy. We talk a lot about the photos and how to do this correctly. And again, as a former real estate agent and really a listing agent in most cases, I have seen so many poorly done photo decks that just shock me sometimes. For example, I have pulled up an MLS listing of a brand new listing this one day, and the first photo is of the bathroom or of the garage or of the backyard. There is an actual way of doing this correctly, and we help you to do that. So you're going to find out a curb appeal photo is twice as much viewing time from a buyer. And if that doesn't get them, they're going to move on to the next one quickly. They, they get on the web, they pull up realtor.com, they look at the first home that's a 3-2 or a 4-3, and say, nah, I don't know, doesn't look that good. Let's go to the next one. So they don't even ever come back to you, folks. So you've got to get this right. So poor curb appeal photo is going to really, really keep you on the market a long time. Again, we do a lot of studies and research in our classes. So we found out that after the first few photos, the average time becomes less and less and less. And I know a lot of you have the room for 50 photos or more. And how many times can you show? How many times can you show a bathroom from different angles? That's not really going to be doing it. You want them to be drawn in by the first photos. So there is an order. There is an order for the photos that's extremely important, and I call them the money shots. And 95% of the viewers look at the curb appeal first before anything else. And they spend so much time on it, and they go back to it. And they will quickly dismiss your listing if poorly done, and they're not coming back. So here's the money shots to start with. We do the street photo a little differently, you'd find out. We do it in different times of the day. And we tell you why. The family room in the back is very important, excuse me, and also the view out the back. The kitchen, of course, and of course the master bedroom and bath are very, very important. You've got to get them right. You can't do a poor job with that. So we talk about how to set up the photos. And again, we push to make sure you use the feng shui first and then take the photos. Sadly, some of you out there probably take photos when it's an overcast day and you never go back to change them. That's not going to help you. That's not going to help your client. So we talk a lot about taking photos at the right time of the day and the order. So residential property transformations, the principles are really important for residential property, for sure. And again, it's for seller agents and buyer agents. I promise you, both of you are going to win big time. And this transformation is linked to improved well-being, increased comfort, and enhanced property value. Commercial, the same thing. The same thing. You can do the same thing. You can actually make a living off of actually working on stores and offices and restaurants. So it really, really is a great way to use these skills. One of the neat things about feng shui and businesses, it actually increases productivity if it's done right. And we like talking about that and how you can actually make a solid living of enhancing businesses. And it gives customer satisfaction even more so. They really, really enjoy being there more. They come back more. Now, we're going to talk about a few things that are going to surprise you a little bit, but I want to give you a flavor of some of the things that we talk about in our training. All of you are familiar with cul-de-sacs, but do you know that there are a couple of houses in this cul-de-sac that I'm showing you that are really not quite as attractive in some ways? this one and this one. And the reason why is because the energy coming down that street is hitting those two a little too forcefully. So it creates a situation where those homes are constantly being bombarded by very, very forceful energy that is not useful. Here's an example. Let's say one of your neighbors is coming down the street after midnight. They've got their high beams on, and your bedroom is in the front. That can be a problem. So we try to stay away from certain situations. We try to talk about particular homes that are not going to be quite as beneficial. And again, you want to make your client feel really good about their decision. You want them to remember you and refer you. And then when they sell in 5, 6 years or whatever, they're going to come back to you. Here's another one, a T junction. In Feng Shui, this is a real no-no. That home right there is in line of a T junction. What a T junction is you have energy coming in front of it that's parallel, and then you have it coming at it directly. Homes like this are really very uncomfortable. And again, this is something that you, as a buyer agent, can tell people, hey, look, this is a problem. And I promise you, if the person is really, really into feng shui, they would never even look at those homes because of what I just said. Now, the main entrance is so important again. And I want to, since we're getting close to the end, I want to give you a few tips on front doors. This one is not particularly good. You might like red doors. And some people think feng shui is all about red doors, and it's not, I promise you. And what's wrong with this picture is that the door actually blends in with the exterior. The exterior is brick, it's sort of reddish and orange. Okay, so it sort of blends in. The idea is that you want it to pop with great contrast. So that's not going to work for me. So the first thing I would do with this particular home, if this was going to be a listing of mine, I would ask him to change the color of the front door to possibly something like black, blue, whatever, but something that really has contrast. Look at the contrast here. This door will show up so much better on Realtor.com, I promise you. And here's one done perfectly in so many ways. So this red door is just fine, but notice it's not at all blending in with the exterior. And they framed the door really nicely too with those pots of flowers. So you got to make sure the front door contrasts with the exterior. Okay? Make sure you remember that one. Always show contrast. So we're showing contrast in the flower beds. Real pivotal. Again, it shows up beautifully in the photos, okay, or on the flyers, whatever. And not only that, but it attracts the energy or the chi from the street. It attracts the chi. And anything that attracts energy or chi also attracts human attention over and over. Now, there are certain homes that we also warn you about that won't work real well with respect to feng shui. One is a split level. I'm not going to get into all these possible floor plans that would be somewhat of a problem. But if you've ever been in a split level, you know that depending on the season, the upstairs might be comfortable and the downstairs not, and vice versa. The energy really has problems with what to do in some cases. So it never really quite gets comfortable in that house. So split levels, in my case, if I was showing, say, 9, 10 homes that had the criteria that somebody was looking for, let's say a 4, 2.5, 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, okay, I would probably put this near the end of the list of 9 or 10 homes that I came up to show them. And here shows you again what a split level can look like. And feng shui is a lot about safety and showing a person's going to be secure and not get hurt. in an environment. So when somebody walks into this particular home, they might get turned off a little bit because of a lot of reasons. Number one, it's showing as being very cold. The five elements will handle that for you when you learn how to use them properly. But secondly, we've got all these steps, which of course is not something that everybody wants to play with, but it also doesn't move the energy very well at all. And another thing I want you to walk away from tonight is the idea of the front door looking straight out the back. Remember, I told you about the room of first impression. We have to get them looking right or left to start with. And I know you're probably wondering, well, why that? Look at this picture. This is going to draw them right in. They're going to love it. Well, it's proven that if you have a situation like this where the back is so beautiful like this, the energy goes right there too, leaves the house immediately, and the focus of the concentration of the buyer goes that way too. And they lose the opportunity to look at what's to the left and the right very much. So what you receive in this training, real quickly, since we're pretty much at the end of this free workshop, and I hope you've gotten some good points here. You get a lifetime of help with this class. So if you got a problem with a listing, okay, you've tried everything for weeks and weeks, all you got to do is email me some pictures and I'll give you some good answers. You get access to our library of videos covering over 16 hours of Feng Shui techniques for real estate success. There's over 30 videos in our library that take you step by step by step through. You get the slides, you get the 12-page seller checklist, you get the 6-page buyer checklist if that's your cup of tea. You get to use the logo, you see it up there on the top. You get a certification sent to you in the mail that's really attractive that you can display. And then again, you get a special bonus now of my LinkedIn class that I give nationally to real estate associations for real estate success. I give it again to every association that asks me to do this, and it has to do with how to use it for prospecting. LinkedIn is how I built my business totally in the last 12 years. So, in conclusion, if you look down at the bottom, if you would like more information, there's the link for you to look at, okay, www.thefengshuicure.com/real estate. And if you want to ask me some specific questions, there it is, steve.codad@thefengshuicure.com. Okay, so let's finish off by making sure you understand you're enhancing property appeal and value. You're fostering harmony in that house, and it really, really shows. And real estate professionals who apply these principles, they see increased success in their sales and client satisfaction. Think referrals, okay? Think referrals. And that's it for tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope that you decide you want to ask me some questions or possibly go ahead and register. You'll love the class.